Digimon is a franchise that's had its ups and downs over the years, and at one point in time rivaled the likes of Pokemon in popularity, especially once it made its way to the West in the late 90s. So executives at 20th Century Fox figured that Digimon should welcome the new millennium by making the leap to the big screen, and it's, certainly a lot to unpack, so let's turn back the clocks and party like it's 1999 to unravel the tangled web of decisions that led to the amalgamation of a feature film that is Digimon The Movie. Now, to the uninitiated, Digimon might just come off as a ripoff of Pokemon, which isn't entirely true. You see, Digimon started as a boy-oriented counterpart to Tamagotchi, the digital pet, created by Wiz and Bandai in 1997, called the Digital Monster. But unlike Tamagotchis, you could actually connect two digital monsters together and have them battle, which is sick as fuck. These little things exploded in popularity in Japan, selling 13 million units, and like most toys that got popular in the 90s, the best way to keep that gravy train going was by moving to another form of media, which took the form of a manga titled Digimon V-Tamers, coming out in V-Jump in 1998. But the success didn't stop, as the next year, Bandai and Wiz approached Toei with the prospect of creating a Digimon anime, which took the form of the 20-minute short film Digimon Adventure. Now, the development of this movie is actually kind of tricky, since just 1 month into the film's development, the Digimon TV anime was also greenlit and started production, and both the movie and the show had chosen the main protagonist from the Digimon manga, Taichi Yagami. So that kind of tied director Mamoru Hosada's hands a little bit, because he couldn't create plot holes. So Hosada's initial pitch for the movie was to follow Taichi's father and his partner Digimon traveling around the Japanese countryside around the time of the Tokyo Summer Olympics in 1964, which was promptly rejected by Toei, who instructed him to just make a kaiju movie. So switching gears, Hosada and the film's director, Reiko Yoshida, decided to focus just primarily on the kaiju battle at the end of the movie, which was already hard enough to do in a 20-minute time frame. To avoid plot holes, Hosada decided to set the events of the film several years before that of the show, focusing on a young Taichi and his little sister Kari during their first encounter with the Digimon, with the chief part of the movie being the climactic kaiju battle between Greymon and Parrotmon. Digimon Adventure premiered on March 6, 1999 as a part of Toei's Spring Animation Festival, alongside a little unknown show called Yu-Gi-Oh! You probably haven't heard about it, it's pretty niche. And the very next day, a TV anime also titled Digimon Adventure premiered on Fuji TV, which ran all the way from March 7th, 1999 to March 26, 2000. And it came to the West pretty quickly, airing on Fox Kids from August 14th, 1999 to June 24th in the year 2000. The English dub, titled Digimon Digital Monsters, was actually produced by Saban. You know, the guys known for westernizing tokusatsu stuff, like turning Super Sentai into Power Rangers, or Metal Heroes into VR Troopers, or B-Fighter Kabuto into Big Bad Beetleborgs, which had a banger theme song, by the way. Man, it was a banger. The 90s was a fire time to be alive, but I was not alive for most of it. Digimon was very well received in the West. So well received, in fact, that when the second season, Digimon Adventure 02, started airing in Japan in April of 2000, the English dub started airing just a few months later in August. But I'm getting a bit ahead of myself before we talk about the second season, because there is one more movie in between the first and second season titled Digimon Adventure Our War Game, or Children's War Game. It really just depends. Digimon Adventure Our War Game is the second of 2 films directed by Mamoru Hosada, with a runtime of about 60 minutes. This time around, Hosada pitched 2 potential plots for this movie. The first was a road movie inspired by the 1988 comedy Midnight Run, and the second story being inspired by the 1983 techno-thriller War Games, where the protagonist saves the world from nuclear war, all from the comfort of his own room, with Toei choosing the latter. Interestingly enough, early scripts for Our War Game actually had the plot revolving around Y2K being caused by a Digimon. Ah, Y2K. Planes were gonna fall out of the sky, the banks were gonna lose all their money, the stock market was gonna crash. And none of it actually did happen, of course. Hosada has stated that he wanted to use this version of the film to teach kids about the concept of Y2K, but it was eventually scrapped once it was settled that the events of the film would take place after the year 2000. However, mentions of Y2K can still be found in early promotional material for the film. Honestly, though, a Digimon causing Y2K would have made for a really cool movie, and I honestly still kind of want to see what that would look like. So fanfic writers, do your thing. The finalized plot of our war game takes place after the events of the first season, with the Digidestined being back in the real world, and a corrupted Digimon is now spawned, eating up data on the internet, disrupting systems all across Japan. This little bugger eventually evolves in the Diaboromon and ends up hacking into the Pentagon systems, launching an ICBM at Tokyo. The film culminates with Tai and Matt joining their Digimon in the net to fuse together to form Omnimon and defeat Diaboromon just in time to deactivate the nuke as it crashes into the river outside of Tai's house. Digimon Adventure Our War Game made 2.16 billion yen, which is approximately 1.5 billion USD, and that's in the year 2000 dollars, so it doesn't account for inflation, which would make it about this much. Maybe that's a lot, I don't know. I'm doing that in post. And later, with the success of the Digimon 02 anime, it of course had to get its own movie, which would take the form of a two-part movie, which, if you combine the two titles, ends up being, I have to read this because it's very long, Digimon Adventure 02 Hurricane Touchdown Transcendent Evolution The Golden Digimentals. That is a mouthful. So for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to refer to it as Hurricane Touchdown for short. So Hurricane Touchdown released both parts at the Toei Summer Animation Festival in the year 2000 to a great success. The plot of the film follows the cast of the second season of the show as they help a boy named Wallace track down his partner Digimon Chocomon, who has been corrupted by a computer virus. There's also a subplot where the older Digidestined get kidnapped by Chocomon, which, you know, explains why they're not there. It's honestly a really good film that tackles a kind of serious issue about the bond between a Digidestined and their Digimon, and has a runtime of about an hour and 8 minutes, which by far makes it the longest film in the franchise at this point. So you might be asking, why am I telling you about all these movies? Well, dear viewer, that's because in 1999, Fox, seeing the success of the first two Pokemon movies, wanted to replicate that by making a Digimon movie. But the problem was that Digimon didn't have a coherent feature-length movie. The closest was the two-part Digimon Adventure 02 movie. So they made a series of developmental decisions that would culminate into Digimon The Movie. When the production for the English dub of Digimon wrapped up halfway through 1999, writers Jeff Nimoy and Bob Buchholz were approached by Fox to write Digimon The Movie, while negotiating their contracts to come back and write for the dub of the second season. Nimoy and Buchholz were tasked with localizing the already existing Digimon movies for Western audiences. Now, Nimoy initially pitched releasing the second film, Our War Game, on its own, and releasing Hurricane Touchdown as a direct-to-DVD movie, or a DVD extra later on. But producer Terry Lee O'Malley suggested using Our War Game and Hurricane Touchdown together since the animation styles are similar and both films have Digi-Eggs as the key plot point, and released the first film, Digimon Adventure, as either a DVD extra or as a TV special. Unfortunately, all these ideas were shot down, as it turns out that Fox was contractually obligated by Toei to adapt all three of the Digimon movies. So the million-dollar question still stands. How did they manage to take three movies that really had nothing to do with each other and cut and stitch them together into a cohesive movie? Well, the answer is better than you'd expect, but I'd be remiss if, before getting into Digimon the Movie, I didn't talk about the Angela Anaconda short. You see, both the theatrical and home video releases of Digimon the Movie start with a short for the show Angela Anaconda. Now, Angela Anaconda was created on the Canadian network Teletoon, but eventually aired alongside Digimon on the Fox Kids block in the US. This show is bowling shoe ugly, and I don't understand it. And this isn't even just a clip from the show either. It is an actual fully fledged self-contained short with references to Digimon. Just imagine, you are a little kid so excited to go see a Digimon movie, and the first thing you see when the movie starts is this face. If Reddit or 4chan is anything to go by, this canonically caused at least one divorce that we know of. The short was later repurposed into an episode of the show with all mentions of Digimon removed, even though Angela still has Ty's hair and goggles. I don't know, I mean, I guess Fox was trying to push this show as like one of its big shows on the kids block, but I don't know, I don't really get it, and I never really understood it. I don't know how popular the show was in its heyday when it was airing, but I do know it has a pretty niche fan base nowadays, so I mean, I guess there's that. Okay, now with all of that background out of the way, we can finally get into the real meat and potatoes. So guys, gals, NB pals, let's kick this off with a bang. I present to you the Digi-Rap. The Digivolution is up and running. Did you see? Did you hear? Did you know what's coming? Digimon the Movie is split into 3 sections. There's 8 years ago, 4 years ago, and then the present day. The 4 years ago section is basically the entirety of the 20-minute Digimon Adventure short film, completely uncut. I mean, the biggest changes are Kari's narration, because they put Kari as a narrator to connect all 3 films, since she's the only character that appears in all 3. There's also the added mention and clips spliced in of the character Wallace from Digimon Adventure 02, now called Willis, who plays a big part in the movie later, but we'll get to that. There's also some censorship of violence and blood during the kaiju battle with Greymon and Parrotmon, but that's not really that noticeable unless you're looking for it. Oh yeah, and the addition of licensed music, such as Rockefeller Skank by Fatboy Slim. Oh yeah, trust me, the licensed music in this movie gets crazy, and I will be pointing it out when it's relevant. But all in all, this serves as a pretty good opening act to a Digimon movie, and segues into a 4-year time skip. The second act of Digimon the Movie is, once again, a fairly uncut version of Digimon Adventure R War Game. Pretty much bar for bar, word for word, the plot of Digimon R War Game, with some more westernized jokes thrown in and changes. And the biggest change that was made was changing Diaboromon's origin from being conglomerate, just random computer viruses into a Digi-Egg to actually been created by Willis in an attempt to create another Digimon partner for himself. The other big differences are mainly the jokes. Like, there's this running gag of Ty's mom being a terrible cook, so she's talking about like all these horrible things like tofu or like evaporated milk and like all this weird cooking, which affects another gag later in the movie where Izzy ends up having to go to the bathroom in like the middle of a big fight against Diaboromon, which in this version is because he ate Ty's mom's cooking, while in the original he just had to pee because he drank too much oolong tea. Another minor change that I noticed is that when Omnimon defeats Diaboromon, in the original he says nothing, but here they added the one-liner, "Connection terminated," which, yeah, it's the 90s, it's a kid show, you gotta have a cheesy one-liner in there, so it checks out. There are also a plethora of great licensed songs here, like One Week by Bare Naked Ladies, All My Best Friends Are Metalheads by Less Than Jake, and The Impression That I Get by the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones. Just a beautiful collection of 90s punk rock and ska. You know what though? The Impression That I Get playing in the background while the nuke crashes down into the river and Sora reads Ty's email about how he's sorry, but he accidentally says that he loves her, it kind of fits in a weird way. You know? If you listen to the lyrics, it doesn't make sense, but it sounds nice. If Digimon the Movie ended here, it would be a pretty cohesive, about an hour-long movie. But there's still another 35 minutes left to go, and it takes place in the present day. Now, this is where the cracks really start to show in Digimon the Movie, because Digimon Adventure 02 Hurricane Touchdown is a 60-minute movie that now has to be essentially cut in half in order to fit into Digimon the Movie's 90-minute runtime. And it really shows. Because now all of a sudden the movie is introducing you to an entire new cast of characters. You know, there's the new Digidestined in Davis, Cody, and Yole, on top of Willis, and their partner Digimon of Vmon, Hawkmon, Armadillomon, Terriermon, and the titular new antagonist, Kokomon. Basically, the entire cast of the movie has been swapped out except for Matt and TK and their partner Digimon, Patamon, and Gatomon. This section of the movie really suffers from pacing issues due to having to cut up 02 in order to fit in the runtime. Like the entire subplot I mentioned earlier about the older kids getting kidnapped and de-aged by Kokomon, it's just gone. They disappear, you see them disappear, and that's it. They're gone. You never see them again for the rest of the movie. They're just gone. So like this poster and the cover art of the movie where they're like cheering on the newer kids is a fucking lie. Not to mention there's a huge tonal shift because of 02's darker tone. Because Digimon the movie goes to be more of a lighthearted kids movie, it really contrasts with the darker tones of 02's original plot, and that shows and ends up giving you like tonal whiplash. There's a scene in the original Hurricane Landing where Daisuke and Wallace have a bit of a heart-to-heart where Wallace reveals that the Digimon they've been fighting is actually Chokomon, his second Digimon partner, to which Davis or Daisuke just starts crying, saying that, well, if it was Vmon, he wouldn't be able to do the same. He wouldn't be able to do it. Wallace then reassures Davis that, hey, it's not your problem to cry about, and we might not have to defeat Chokomon to save the others. We might be able to save everyone, and Chokomon. To which Daisuke stops crying and says, you know what, you're right, we're the Digidestined, we can do anything. So how do they adapt this heartfelt moment into Digimon the movie? Like this.
I'm the one with the problem, not you. Get over it. Okay.
Yep, that's all you get. You just get a stop crying. Okay. It's comical. It's really comical in like a really messed up kind of way. Could you imagine that if you just went to one of your friends who was crying for you and just be like, why are you crying? It's my problem. Stop. Get over it. And your friend just immediately stops crying and is like, yeah, all right. It's like unintentionally funny. I don't know if this was intentionally meant to be funny, but like it's really funny, especially with knowing the context of like the original scene. After this, the movie basically just fast forwards to the final showdown against Kokomon, which remains mostly intact since it's the climax of the movie, and with the help of Angemon and Angewomon summoning the golden digi-eggs, which is something that has never been talked about before, in order to give a power-up to Terriermon and Vmon, who use it to kill Kokomon, saving the other Digidestined and the world as we know it, and laying Kokomon to rest. It's honestly really somber, in the original at least. We do then get a nice scene of Willis reminiscing about Kokomon, and you'll never guess what song it's set to. Another banger of a licensed song. It's set to All-Star by Smash Mouth. Yeah, that song doesn't really convey the proper emotions I would associate with mourning the loss of a loved one. Oh yeah, and the credits are set to a cover of Kids in America by Len. You know, Digimon the movie was really ahead of its time because All-Star by Smash Mouth and Kids in America were both, when I knew growing up, were from Shrek and the Jimmy Neutron movie, respectively. But this was like years before both of those, so it really was ahead of its time, I guess. Despite my grievances with Digimon the movie, it opened at the box office at number 5 and made a total of $16 million by the end of its theatrical run. On a $5 million budget, that's enough to be considered a mild box office success. So successful, in fact, that the international success of Digimon the movie led to Toshio Suzuki reaching out to Mamoru Hosoda and offering him the position to direct Howl's Moving Castle. Hosoda later left the project, citing creative differences as his biggest reason, but still. Now, Digimon the movie was critically panned by critics and reviewers, who stated their main grievances being the fact that the movie doesn't really focus on the plot or the characters and mainly relies on you having to have knowledge of the show. Which, you know, it's a fair criticism. If you didn't really know anything about Digimon, it kind of introduces you to the characters briefly, but if you don't really know anything about Digimon, it's just kind of weird. But despite the production issues and the negative critical reception, fans and audiences alike love Digimon the Movie, and that's what really matters. I mean, even to this day, Digimon the Movie still generates articles, memes, urban legends. The soundtrack is a perfect encapsulation of the 90s and early 2000s, and I gotta admit, it did influence my taste in music. I say it like I'm ashamed, but my playlists are like 80% ska, and I'm not sorry. And Digimon the Movie is to blame. Digimon the Movie will forever stand as a time capsule of the 2000s, from its writing to its comedy to its music. And to be honest, stands as a pretty good representation of how Western studios viewed localizing Japanese media, constantly changing things or trying to forcibly Westernize it by changing things like the theme song, character names, entire plot points. Sometimes they would cut out entire story arcs. I mean, look at Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean, they didn't even adapt Season 0 of Duel Monsters, and Season 4 of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX just was never dubbed because it was just deemed too dark. I mean, to be fair, yes, it is a pretty darker tone compared to the first 3 seasons, but like, they didn't even try. Thankfully, by the time these characters returned to Digimon Adventure Tri, the attitude of the industry had changed more towards localizing rather than adapting. So the plot of Tri remains very much intact, while still carrying the characters, and actually a lot of the original cast came back. The Digimon adventure may be finally coming to an end this year after Toei announced it themselves, along with the announcement of a new show, Digimon Beat Break, but Digimon the Movie will always be remembered by fans as one of the coolest things ever, despite its imperfections. Thank you so much for watching this video. I have been the Wild Card. This has been my bed. If you liked what you saw, leave a like and a comment, and consider subscribing if you want more. And I'll see you next time. Peace.